In just 47 seconds, $2.3 billion disappeared from federal oversight. Zoran Mamdani didn't wait for permission. He pressed play on the recording that would destroy two political careers forever. What you're about to hear will shake American politics to its core. This isn't just another political scandal. This is the moment democracy fought back against corruption and won. The recording Mamdani obtained through sources inside Trump's inner circle reveals the most shocking backroom deal in modern American history. A deal so corrupt, so brazen, that it makes Watergate look like a parking ticket. At exactly 2:47 p.m. on October 15, 2025, everything changed. Mamdani walked into that packed Albany press conference carrying a simple black folder. Inside, audio evidence that would end the political careers of Donald Trump and Andrew Cuomo in less than 8 minutes. The room was electric with tension. Reporters from CNN, Fox News, The New York Times, and dozens of international outlets had been promised explosive revelations about federal corruption. Nobody knew what was coming. Nobody was prepared for what they were about to witness. Mamdani approached the podium like a prosecutor, presenting his closing argument to the jury of American democracy. His face was calm, but his eyes blazed with righteous fury. This wasn't just politics. This was personal. Trump and Cuomo had tried to destroy his campaign, his family, his future. Now it was time for payback. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mamdani began, his voice steady but sharp as a blade, "what you're about to hear is a conversation between President Trump and Andrew Cuomo that took place on September 23, 2020. The room went silent. You could hear reporters holding their breath. Cameras zoomed in on Mamdani's face as he continued. This conversation was recorded by sources inside the administration who were horrified by what they witnessed. It reveals a conspiracy between the highest levels of our federal government and local political machines to subvert democracy itself. Mamdani's hand trembled slightly as he reached for the audio player. This was the moment that would either vindicate everything he'd fought for or destroy his political future forever. Before I play this recording, I want to be clear. What you're about to hear is the sitting president of the United States promising federal funding in exchange for political favors. This is corruption at the highest level. He pressed play. Trump. Andy, we need to talk about the Mamdani situation. This kid is becoming a real problem. CUOMO, tell me about it. He's got the entire progressive movement behind him. If he wins, Trump, he's not going to win. I'm guaranteeing you that. But I need your help. The room erupted. Reporters started shouting questions. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. But Mamdani held up his hand for silence. The worst was yet to come. Cuomo, what kind of help? Trump, I'm prepared to offer you something big. Really big. You help me stop Mamdani, and I'll make sure New York gets that $2.3 billion infrastructure package. No questions asked. Come on, that's a lot of money, Donald. Trump, it's pocket change compared to what we'll lose if this communist takes over the city. Think about it, Andy. $2.3 billion. Your legacy as a builder, the man who rebuilt New York. The recording continued for another 4 minutes, but those first 90 seconds were enough. The room had headed into chaos. Reporters were live tweeting the revelations. Political analysts were already calling it the smoking gun that would end Trump's presidency. But Mamdani wasn't finished. He had more bombshells to drop. This recording proves beyond any doubt that President Trump attempted to bribe Andrew Cuomo with federal taxpayer money to interfere in a local election. This is a federal crime punishable by up to 15 years in prison. The legal implications were staggering. Federal bribery, election interference, abuse of office. Constitutional scholars would later call it the most clear-cut case of presidential corruption in American history. Cuomo, What exactly are you asking me to do, Trump? Use your connections, call in favors, get the unions to back off, make sure the media knows about Mamdani's radical agenda, scare the moderates. CUOMO, the unions won't be easy. They love this kid, Trump. Then find another way. You're creative, Andy. You didn't get where you are by playing nice. The criminal conspiracy was playing out in real time, recorded for posterity. Two of the most powerful men in American politics casually discussing how to subvert democracy for personal gain. CUOMO. If I do this, if I help you stop Mamdani, the $2 billion is guaranteed. Trump, guaranteed. But Andy, if Mamdani wins, if you can't deliver, don't expect any favors from this administration. We'll remember who our friends are. The threat was unmistakable. Help us commit election fraud or face financial punishment. This was extortion combined with bribery, a double felony that would destroy both men's careers. Mamdani paused the recording and looked directly into the cameras. His next words would be replayed on every news network in America for weeks. What you just heard is the President of the United States and a former governor of New York conspiring to steal an election using taxpayer money as a bribe. This is not politics as usual. This is criminal corruption that strikes at the heart of our democracy. The crowd erupted again, but this time it wasn't just reporters. Citizens who had gathered outside the building began chanting, "Lock them up, lock them up." The chants grew louder, spreading through the streets of Albany like wildfire. Social media exploded. Trump Cuomo tapes began trending worldwide within minutes. Mamdani hero followed close behind. The hashtag spread faster than any political story in recent memory. Within hours, the Department of Justice announced a criminal investigation. The FBI executed search warrants on Cuomo's offices. Congressional Republicans began quietly distancing themselves from Trump. The political earthquake Mamdani had triggered was reshaping American politics in real time. But the most devastating part of the recording was still to come. Trump. Once we deal with Mamdani, we can start cleaning house in other cities. Chicago, Philadelphia, Los Angeles. These progressives are a cancer, and we're going to cut them out. CUOMO. A nationwide strategy? That's ambitious. Trump. It's necessary. Democracy only works when the right people are in charge. We can't let these radical socialists destroy everything we've built. The admission was stunning. This wasn't just about stopping Mamdani. This was about a systematic plan to undermine progressive candidates across the country, using federal resources as weapons. Constitutional scholars immediately called it the most serious threat to American democracy since the Civil War. Former presidents from both parties issued joint statements condemning the corruption. International allies expressed deep concern about American democratic institutions. But Mamdani had one final bombshell that would seal both men's fate forever. The recording you just heard was made using equipment provided by the FBI as part of an ongoing corruption investigation. The source who provided this recording is a high-ranking administration official who has been cooperating with federal investigators for months. The room fell silent. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a leaked recording. This was evidence in an active federal criminal investigation. Trump and Cuomo weren't just facing political consequences. They were facing federal prison. Within 72 hours, both men's careers were over. Trump faced impeachment proceedings for the second time in his presidency. Cuomo was arrested by federal agents at his home in Queens. The 47-second recording Mamdani released had become the smoking gun that brought down two of the most powerful men in American politics. The victory was complete. Mamdani had exposed the corruption at the heart of the political establishment, and proven that democracy could still triumph over tyranny. The kid from Queens had taken on the most powerful men in America and won. This is what happens when truth meets power. This is what democracy looks like when it fights back, and this is why Zohran Mamdani's name will be remembered forever as the man who saved American democracy by pressing play on a recording that changed everything. The fallout from Mamdani's bombshell created a political tsunami that swept across American government. Within hours, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows resigned in disgrace. 3 Trump cabinet members followed before midnight, citing irreconcilable differences with the administration's approach to democratic governance. Vice President J.D. Vance, who had been conspicuously silent during Trump's attacks on Mamdani, suddenly found his voice. In a hastily arranged press conference at 11:47 p.m., Vance shocked the political world. "I cannot and will not defend criminal behavior," Vance declared, his face pale but determined. The recording released today represents a fundamental betrayal of our constitutional principles. I am calling on President Trump to resign immediately. The crowd of reporters erupted. Camera flashes exploded like fireworks. This was unprecedented, a sitting vice president publicly calling for his own president's resignation. Political analysts would later call it the most devastating moment of Trump's presidency. But Vance wasn't finished delivering his devastating blow. Furthermore, I want to make clear that I had no knowledge of these conversations with Governor Cuomo. Had I known, I would have reported them to the Department of Justice immediately. This administration has lost its moral authority to govern. Meanwhile, in Queens, Andrew Cuomo's world was collapsing in real time. Federal agents had surrounded his home at 6:23 a.m., just hours after Mamdani's press conference. Neighbors filmed the arrest on their phones as Cuomo was led away in handcuffs, his face a mask of humiliation and defeat. The images went viral instantly. Cuomo purple walk trended alongside Mamdani vindicated, as America watched one of its most powerful politicians face the consequences of his corruption. Cuomo's longtime aide, Melissa DeRosa, emerged from the house in tears. "This is a witch hunt," she screamed at the cameras. Governor Cuomo is innocent, but her protestations fell on deaf ears. The recording had made denial impossible. Back in Albany, Mamdani was experiencing the most surreal 24 hours of his life. His phone hadn't stopped ringing since the press conference. Interview requests poured in from every major network. International media wanted to speak with the man who had brought down the American president. But Mamdani remained focused on the bigger picture. This wasn't about personal vindication. It was about saving democracy itself. "This is just the beginning," he told a crowd of supporters who had gathered outside his campaign headquarters. "We've exposed the corruption, but now we have to rebuild the system. We have to prove that government can work for working people, not just billionaires and corrupt politicians." The crowd erupted in cheers. "Mamdani, Mamdani, Mamdani, Mamdani," they chanted, signs reading "Truth Teller" and "Democracy's Hero" waved in the evening air. Progressive leaders across the country were hailing Mamdani as the future of American politics. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted, "This is what courage looks like. Zohran Mamdani just saved our democracy." The tweet was retweeted over 2 million times within 6 hours. Bernie Sanders called Mamdani personally. "You've done something extraordinary, young man," the Vermont senator said, his voice filled with emotion. "You've shown that truth and justice can still triumph over corruption and lies." Elizabeth Warren issued a statement calling for immediate congressional hearings. "We need a full investigation into how deep this corruption goes. The American people deserve answers. The legal consequences were swift and severe." Special counsel Jack Smith announced that Trump would face federal charges for bribery, conspiracy, and violation of campaign finance laws. Legal experts predicted a prison sentence of 15 to 20 years if convicted on all counts. Cuomo faced similar charges in both federal and state court. New York Attorney General Letitia James announced that her office would pursue additional charges related to abuse of office and corruption of public resources. The political earthquake spread internationally. The BBC led with "American Democracy Under Siege." Young mayor exposes presidential corruption. Germany's Der Spiegel called it the recording that toppled a president. France's Le Monde declared it the end of Trump's America. Allied governments expressed relief that corruption was exposed, but worried about American stability. NATO held emergency sessions, while the G7 supported democratic institutions and rule of law. Financial markets initially panicked, then rallied as investors realized exposing corruption strengthened long-term stability. The dollar strengthened as global confidence in American institutions recovered. But perhaps the most powerful moment came at the end of that historic day. Mamdani returned to his childhood home in Astoria, Queens, where his immigrant parents had raised him to believe in the promise of America. His mother, tears streaming down her face, embraced her son. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "You've shown the world that in America, truth still matters." That image, the young politician who had just brought down the most powerful man in the world, hugging his mother in a modest Queens apartment, became iconic. It represented everything America could be when courage triumphed over corruption. The revolution had begun, and it started with 47 seconds of audio that exposed the truth the establishment desperately wanted to hide.